Welcome to Weird Web Radio, an explorer's guide to hidden worlds of the paranormal and occult, reality-expanding experiences, and the downright weird and bizarre. With your host, Lonnie Scott.
Hey gang, welcome to another episode of Weird Web Radio. It is really awesome to have you all here listening. This episode features someone who you all voted for in the last year's Weird Webby Awards and the winner of Best Book of 2023. And this is Diana Helmuth. And she wrote a pretty incredible book called The Witching Year, and I personally do recommend it because I read it and loved it. It highlighted quite a bit. And it's a very honest, raw, kind of open way of her own exploration of witchcraft. Diana's bio says that she writes about our desires to be transported, our urge to reconnect with nature, how to keep going when you feel like a fool. And wow, isn't that just a great way to capture sort of the essence of life and the path and such of magic? Now, in this episode, we do talk a little bit about our skepticism as well, because those who are delving into this path are going to confront that skepticism. And believe me, folks, I'm 46 years old as of this recording, and I started this in my teens, and I still have a healthy degree of skepticism. And I think that's the key word I wanted to bring up in one of these rare intros, in that healthy skepticism, not total disregard, not rude dismissiveness, but raising an eyebrow at ideas and even claims that people may make, and always be willing to trust your intuition and your instincts too. Um, you can't combat your own experience. You need to delve into that and explore on your own. And you do not ever have to take anyone at their word or their claim. I would just suggest that you respectfully disagree when and where you can, unless it is means of coercive control, abuse, gaslighting, or some other form of manipulation that leads to someone trying to inflict their power, their abuse, and their control over you in your life. At which point, red flags should be going off and you should be exiting from that situation as safely as possible and as quickly as you can. Now, with all of that said, I wanted to share a couple things that I have gotten from someone who means quite a lot to me. And there are quotes. One of them, and before I do that, I want to just say that I think these are meaningful and relatable to the experience of someone who's being so open and honest about their exploration into witchcraft. One of them says, "Meet me at midnight in the forest of my dreams. We'll make a fire and count the stars that shimmer above the trees." That quote is from Christy Ann Martine, and I love it. It speaks to so much that can be held sacred and unique and beautiful and magical in the world, especially within us. Another one is from S.K. Williams, and it simply says, "Magic is made of the same things that we are: hope, love, and a sprinkle of stardust." That quote is one of the most beautiful things when you stop and think about it, and I could not love it more. And finally, one other thing. Let yourself be silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love. It will not lead you astray. In the silence, there is a sacred mystery, a path that shows the way not with words, but with the heart's yearning. And that quote is from Rune. Thank you, all of you, for listening. Please enjoy this episode. If you like it, please go out, rate it, share it, comment on wherever you get it, and help spread the word of Weird Web Radio. And of course, there's always bonus content available on Patreon at patreon.com/weirdwebradio, or you go to weirdwebradio.com and click join the membership. I hope to see you there soon. Stay weird, my friends. And we are recording. Welcome to Weird Web Radio, Diana Helmuth. It is awesome to have you here. And please tell me I pronounced your last name right.
You pronounced it perfectly on the first try. So A+ gold star all around. Not
It's
everybody.
not it's not hard because it's right there in your bio. Pronounced
Yeah.
Hell-myth.
I like to offer that assist to folks. Yeah.
Yeah. Nicely done. Um, let's see. From your bio, I like to read about you to you, just so other people know who you are and why I would have you here. It says you're a nonfiction author, freelance writer, Silicon Valley startup veteran. That sounds spooky or something. I don't know what happened there. Trench warfare. uh,
Basically.
Hiker, a producer, a cupcake baker, and let's see, a pretty bad gardener, but you try to do that. That's funny. Let's see. And then we get to your first book was How to Suffer Outside, a beginner's guide to hiking and backpacking.
Mhm.
That's not the topic of this show, but that's a great book title.
Thank you. We worked really hard on that.
I bet. And you won a National Outdoor Book Award for the best instructional. That's really cool.
Yeah, that was a huge honor.
Your second book, the reason I did invite you here, how you got on my radar, was The Witching Year, a memoir of Earnest fumbling through modern witchcraft. And let's see, it says you were featured on NPR's All Things Considered, reviewed in the New York Times, nominated for the 2023 Goodreads Choice Award for Best Memoir and Autobiography, and fuck all those hoes, you won 2023 Weird Web Radio Weird Webby Award for Book of the Year.
I didn't have a speech prepared. No, that was the thank you guys, you listeners for doing that. I was really flattered by that. Thank you.
Yeah, it is voted on by the listeners, so there you go. And New York Times, what? Whatever. All right, so The Witching Year. Let's dig in here. That's usually I'd be like, where'd you get started? Where'd you go from there? Sort of. And you sort of documented this for us. The thing that I love the most about this book, first of all, one, you are a great storyteller.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. You engage all the senses. You get personal, even embarrassingly personal at points.
Yep. you should have seen the stuff we cut, man, if you thought that was bad. Yeah.
And it reminded me of what I really very, very desperately want to see more of in this genre. Of like Lon Milo Duquette's book, My Life with the Spirits.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a how-to manual. It's stories about his experiments in life with his magical path. And Laura Tempest Sockcroft had Weaving the Liminal, which is titled about modern traditional witchcraft, but much of that book is really stories about her life and experiences. And there's not enough of these out there, in my opinion. And you added one that captures a time in someone's life who enters into this kind of world,
Mm-hmm.
more full of questions. And something I saw again and again and again on Discord chats and blog reviews and social media was so many of us who've been at it for years going, oh wow, did you see that one part, like that I went through that, like that kind of thing, but I would have never said
it. Yeah. That was a goal, actually. That was the pitch of the book. Was there are a lot of really beautiful stories out there of witches who wake up one day and the moon is talking to them in clear and perfect speech, and then they go on a quest to find themselves through the occult, and they succeed, and it's like hard but beautiful, and everything just works out. And I was like, I don't really think that's real. I don't think it's that linear. I think it's messy. I think there's a lot of stumbling blocks. And if you talk to witches, they have incredible senses of humor most of the time. And there are things about ritual and diving into the occult that get very ironic and, dare I say, slapstick. And I just never really saw that presented, because I still feel like the way larger society wants to see a witch is as this finished, confident, actualized, usually a woman, and maybe she's a villain and maybe she's a hero, but the point is she's sure of herself. And I was just like, I don't really think that is true for a lot of witches. I want to see a witch with doubt. I want to see a witch who stumbles. I want to see a witch who tries to talk to a plant and it doesn't talk back. And then she goes, fuck this. And, I wanted a little bit more of that authenticity to it. And that's what we tried to present in the book. So a lot of the book is just watching me try to do stuff and have it not work. And the nicest thing I have heard in response in some of these reviews is how many witches have said, oh yeah, me too. And I'm like, oh, this is okay. So it is real. And it's an honor that that's relatable content. And I'm glad we can all just sort of maybe talk about it a little more freely. Yeah.
And you're right. I think that would be one of the coolest reviews. I know one of my favorite things that I get as feedback from the show is, I get people on here who say they communicate with spirits quite a bit. Imagine that. And there's always a part of me, because I have my own practice and processes that I do, and I wouldn't expect anybody to just believe what I say, but there's always a part of me that goes, but do you? So I press.
But do you?
Yeah. So I press, I think on the surface, we say things that are not helpful when we think maybe they are. So when somebody says, for instance, did they speak to spirits? Well, do you see them like you see me right now? Do you hear them in your ear the way you hear me right now? Is it something in your mind? Is it a knowing? Like, let's break this down. And when you do that, you often find they have that doubt you're talking about, that they have those things that are going on that they're not sure about all the time. And then when they are sure, it's really powerful and it's really cool and it's really personal.
Yeah.
So you start, if I recall right, Googling the top, 10
books about
witchcraft books.
So we and we openly acknowledge this in the intro of the book. The Witching Year is a remix of and kind of a spiritual successor to the 2007 bestseller, The Year of Living Biblically by A.J. Jacobs, where, this mid-40s
Yes.
Jewish guy in New York, tries to live by all the rules of the Bible for a year and hilarity ensues. And no one had done... Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I don't want to interrupt you. I'm just saying, if anyone out there wants an awesome book to give your religious friends,
The Year of Living
A.J. Jacobs,
yeah.
The Year of Living Biblically is a grand slam and a great book. And A.J. Jacobs, if you by any chance are listening, please come on my show, man.
Yeah, he might. I mean, when I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, I'm kind of trying to riff your book," he was very nice to me. He's very approachable, kind man. He seemed pretty excited that I was trying to create a spiritual successor to his book. But so when he begins his journey, he has the Bible. And of course, there's different versions of the Bible, and interpretations of the Bible are a very big deal, and they contradict each other, and everything is subjective. But the point is, he has the Bible. So when I stared down the barrel of trying to become a witch for a year, and I was thinking about who I would follow, which is to say, what is the most correct and popular form of witchcraft? I mean, the first third of the book is just, I know, it's like, everyone's probably laughing already. Like, what is that even? This is a spirituality that by definition is self-directed. So how on earth, I mean, of course there are covens, there's Wicca, there's, I could get involved in something very specific. And I considered that, but that felt like closing myself off to too many branches of the movement. So then I kind of took a step back and I thought, okay, what are we really trying to do here? We're trying to explore modern witchcraft as a spiritual phenomenon that is supposedly going to lead me to becoming a happier, healthier, more empowered person. we can't do what's oldest in terms of legitimacy, but we could probably do what's most popular, because this is a folk spirituality after all. I couldn't think of a better metric. So truly, that's what I did. I gave this, a lot of people might think it was um, half-hearted or lazy, but the truth is I gave this a ton of thought when I sat down and I said, I'm just going to follow what's most popular, because I think that is what most people are doing. And there, little tangents spun off, and I let myself fall into little rabbit holes. And of course, there's a ton of stuff I missed, but I also can only read so many books in a year and listen to so many voices. And so making it a popularity contest really did seem like the smoothest way out. So yeah, we started with Wicca for the structure, because most modern witchcraft in the United States is rooted in Wicca. I realize that's a controversial statement, but I stand heartily by it.
Oh, that's not controversial. You know what
Oh, I'm
is?
glad. Oh,
Spoilers. Just about every fucking pagan thing is
yeah.
based on Wicca at some point. Yeah, I said what
Touche.
I said.
No, hey, yeah, well, yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Half the book could just be asterisks, because it was like, anyway, yeah, there was at one point my editor said, you don't need to consider every single argument someone might say against you. And I said, yeah, but they're gonna. And she said, I'm not saying they're not gonna, but you can't address all of them. You'll go insane and this book won't make any sense. You just kind of have to move on, just make a statement and move on at a certain point. So thank God for editors. But
that's solid advice, because then you end up arguing with the people who say, but I saw a bird and it was sent just for me. And
but I saw a bird. Yeah.
And maybe it was, but
that reminds me, this astrologer I talked to, she was a very pragmatic astrologer, and I'm very skeptical of astrology in the book for various reasons. But something she said that I remembered that I loved is she said, sometimes that guy's an asshole because he's just an asshole. It's not because he's a Pisces. Like, sometimes that bird is just a bird. It doesn't mean Odin is talking to you. There's still, don't discount basic reality. Not everything is a sign you'll go crazy. And
in an animistic world, they have their own lives too, their own autonomy.
Yeah, so, they're not always just here on call for us. Not always, but that's the trap, of course, is when is the sign a sign versus when it's not.
Did you ever figure that out?
Oh God, I still can't figure that out.
You didn't get the secret decoder ring yet?
No, I still can't. I mean, sometimes I guess it's obvious, but it's hard to discount your own bias. If you go looking for a sign, you're going to find one. And if a sign is staring you in the face, then you just don't want to accept what it has to say. You're going to be biased against receiving that information. I wish the universe spoke to me in very clear, clean language, but I don't think it does for anybody. So, no, I still haven't figured that one out. But if anyone has, I think they should come onto your show, and I would pay good money for that seminar. I really would.
I've had people on the show who are certain they have figured it out, and
really,
they're good people, and they might be right. I don't know. The bookshelves are full of books that will tell you they have figured that out.
People,
I don't know.
Sure. Yeah.
I think Aidan Walker, author of 6 Ways, Weaving Fate, Changeling, has a concept that I think boils a lot of older concepts into one more practical form. And he calls it the field, just the collective of everything that was, is, and will be. And you are kind of a node in that field. You're connected to everything, but you're also individual. And then I looked at Jason Miller and his teachings, where he talks about everything being local, the most important things being local. So yeah, if you get in sync with certain things, if you're doing some kind of ritual, and part of that ritual, maybe say for instance, is honoring Odin or asking Odin for favors, right? Since he was brought up. And then you get in your car and you drive away and you see a couple ravens. Are they there from Odin? Maybe not. Have you primed yourself to notice them though? Yes.
Yeah.
And does that make you feel fucking awesome? Yes.
Yes.
And could that just be some kind of, now you're more in flow to notice that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
are you being sent
Yeah.
signals or are you just more in flow?
Yeah.
And ultimately, does that not lead to the same mountaintop, in terms of
It doesn't make it
seeing?
less
Yeah,
magical,
yeah. I would agree. It doesn't make it less magical. I mean, I also think being like, for, yeah, for it's a good phrase, for lack of a better phrase, in flow is exhausting and really hard to maintain. It's beautiful. It's I can't really maintain it. I think I would go mad if I tried to maintain it,
Hmm.
Um but
I
many shamans are. So,
quite mad. Yeah.
yeah, they're
I
not they're not like us.
I mean,
They've given up that luxury.
I recently formed a local group to get together and call it Crow Kindred, like local heathens, and working on getting that built up. And our first meetup is in the local park. It's already been named. They're all invited and welcome. When I drive to go to the first meetup, I pull up to the part where we're going to have our meetup, and there are crows sitting there. And I got excited, and I took their picture. I sent it to the group. I'm like, "Look, we've been approved." But
Uh-huh.
at the same time, I live in East Central Illinois. There are fucking crows everywhere.
Well, so
That's yeah.
this came up in the book. I mean, if I were you, I would find myself unable to not see that as a little bit of a sign, just considering what you're doing.
Hmm.
Could have been a squirrel, wasn't, you know. Um,
Well,
in
if
the
it was a
book,
squirrel, that still works in heathenry, though.
at one point, I attempt to. My mom gets robbed, and I attempt to use a spell to get her property back. And it's the boldest spell I attempt because I'm not just trying to influence myself, I'm actually trying to influence something outside of me. And I end up using this hawk feather that she gave me many years ago to represent her as part of the spell. And then a day or two later, we have chickens in the backyard, and a hawk starts coming into our yard and screwing with the chickens. And there's never been a hawk before. We'd lived there for a year and a half. We'd had the chickens for a year, and all of a sudden there's this hawk. And so I don't think anything of it. And then I'm texting a friend about it, and I was like, there's this realization where I go, did I summon a fucking hawk? Didn't did I summon a hawk? Like, am I flattering myself if I ask if I summoned a hawk? And my friend said, "Oh, she's a witch. She's one of my witch mentors in the book." And she said, "Sounds like you definitely summoned a hawk." And I said, "Well, that's very flattering and makes me feel extremely cool. Don't get me wrong, but a couple things. One, I didn't mean to summon a hawk. The hawk feather was supposed to represent my mom. Um, introduce a crash course in sympathetic magic, and
Hmm.
then the second thing is I now the hawk is fucking with my chickens and I can't get it to go away. Um, so this is actually this isn't what I ordered, and it's worse. And how do I make it stop? And she said, "Have you tried talking to the hawk?" And I said, "Well, I didn't try the first time and he showed up anyway. So what do you mean talk to the hawk?" And my boyfriend at the time, who's an atheist in the book, he's like, have you considered that we live a little bit close to a forest and we happen to keep a stock of a hawk's favorite snacks in our backyard? And maybe that's why the hawks showed up. And I said, compelling logic. But also, we've had those chickens for a year and we've never seen a hawk until 2 days after I do. It's just
Right.
enough. It's just enough doubt, of course. But I still don't know. But I did learn a lot about sympathetic magic, and subsequently I have learned if I want to try and do magic for a person, um, do something a little. I should have used my mom's hair or fingernails or something, not a hawk feather
Yeah.
that she gave me that reminded me of her. Either way, so
Yeah.
I guess jury's still out on whether or not I summoned a hawk, but it's
Well,
it's 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 fun to think I'm that powerful. Why not? It's a nice idea.
you do venture a lot into like trying spell work in the book, and that is a big part of witchcraft for many of the traditions. And yes, I know, before I get the email, there are witches who don't practice magic. I've never met you, but I hear you exist.
It's actually, I don't think I've ever met a witch, because I thought the whole definition of a witch is that you do practice magic. If you don't
No.
practice magic, aren't you just then sort of a broader kind of contemporary pagan or a neo-pagan? Isn't the
Maybe, but
definition of witch
since
to like
you brought it up, what is your
bend?
definition of witch? How would you define witch after taking that journey? Do you have a new definition? I mean, some way you would explain it to someone?
I'll quote my friend Lauren Parker, who's one of my witch mentors in the book and has a spell deck coming out sometime next year. She told me, "Craft is the path, witch is the job," and I
Mhm.
really I liked that a lot. I think is a witch and a witch is someone who performs tasks. They are a helper, they are a healer. They are using magic along with other mundane tools to cause an effect. And usually that is done through no small amount of willpower, because that is the manipulation of magic. It requires willpower. That's how I would define a witch. And it's why sometimes I hesitate to call myself a witch, because I don't do a ton of spell work anymore, but I very much liked the spiritual concepts I encountered in Wicca and heathenry and broader, more New Age influenced non-Wiccan witchcraft. I think there's a lot of really beautiful, beautiful content there, and I want to stay engaged with it. But if I'm not doing any spells, if I'm not shaping anything, if I'm not crafting, am I a witch? My answer to that is no, because a witch is well, again, it depends on who you ask. I mean, people who are just Wiccan will often say they are witches, whether or not they are practicing magic. And then on the other hand, I define a witch as someone who uses magic as part of a job. And if you're not doing the job, then you're not a witch. You might be something else. So it's too subjective. I mean, my God, what is a witch? It's there's 10,000 definitions and none of them.
Mhm.
I mean, that's also why when I go to parties now, and people will say, "Oh, Diana wrote a book about witchcraft," and it's never the witch herself or themselves. It's always like her partner or something who looks at me and goes, "Oh, my girlfriend's a witch," and then me and the girlfriend will lock eyes and nod, and both have this silent understanding that we both know there's a good chance we don't have any fucking thing in common at all. We're not sure. It's not like ew, but it's like, hi, yeah, he thinks we're doing the same thing, and we both know there's a good chance we're not. It's not like meeting another Protestant. It's not like meeting another Muslim. It's not, because it's disorganized. It's a decentralized folk spirituality that most people don't even think is a religion. I have no idea. If I meet another witch, I am not going to assume she's doing what I'm doing, or that she even defines the word witch the same way I do. And
And they don't.
and I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. It's witches fight a lot, but when we have a common enemy, we always seem to have each other's backs. It's that's what I really like about this community a lot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Did you ever manage to convince yourself that, like spellcraft, magic, the craft, I guess, that any of that really it's real? Did you convince yourself of it at some point?
Oh, oh, that's such a good question. I'm sorry for this long pause. You
No,
can
that's
edit it
fine.
out if you want.
No, I won't.
Okay.
Those are my favorite moments.
I think magic is real. I think my ability to perceive it and manipulate it is still not extremely strong. I think I had moments where I did. And those moments were always characterized by ecstasy, which
Mm-hmm.
I think Starhawk writes a lot about very well, and other people too. But I'm a huge Starhawk fan, and she writes about how you have to shut down the thinking mind to get into she has like those three minds and I'm blanking on them right now, but you know, the younger self, you have to shut down the thinking self to get to the younger self. If anyone knows the actual terms, I'm so sorry. I'm butchering them and I really apologize. It's I didn't know there was going to be a pop quiz. I mean, I'm the one who brought it up. I didn't know it was going to be pop quiz on my Starhawk terminology. It's really hard to get out of the thinking mind, and that is what ritual helps us to do, to get in touch with that part of our mind that allows us to feel things beyond the five senses and then possibly manipulate them. But even just sensing them is deeply ecstatic.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't use that word lightly. I mean, it really is like every time I did that, I felt like I had briefly taken a hit of MDMA and I rolled. It was cool. I really liked it.
She's talking about ecstasy. Rolling is people on ecstasy. If you've ever been at a rave, you would know. No.
Yeah, MDMA, ecstasy, Molly. It's yeah, or just go to a neo-pagan ritual, whatever you want to. One will leave you more hydrated in the morning, and possibly feeling a little better. The other, you'll just really want to listen to techno.
Yeah.
But do I believe it? I mean, I guess similar to you, when someone claims they have all these powers, I cock an eyebrow. How can you not? But
Mm-hmm.
I've had enough personal experiences that felt true that I don't think the whole thing is malarkey. I think there are parts of modern witchcraft that are malarkey, or at least I could never really be convinced were worth much. But and I write about that honestly in the book. I didn't want the book to be a dunk fest, but there are some things I dunk on,
Mm-hmm.
and then there are some things that I surprised myself by how intensely they affected me and how real they felt and how profound of an impression that they left on me. Yeah.
There was one part of the book where I thought you captured that really well. Um, I don't remember what, like, I don't remember what holiday it was for, what Sabbath or whatnot. But you had gone to a house. I believe you had to buy a ticket to go.
Samhain.
Yeah, and you was like, it's the stages that you went through this house to the backyard, and you're describing it, and I'm thinking back to a ritual very similar to one I attended, only it was like for a different kind of pagan style, not witchcraft, but still the vibe was there, and everything just seemed to fit. And you described this incredibly profound experience. I know it's part of the book, but can you kind of break down that experience for people?
Yeah. So, sorry, my cat is playing behind me. Hopefully it's not too noisy.
No, you're fine.
Um, I went to a Samhain ritual. I wanted to do something really big for Samhain because Samhain is the witches' new year. It's the time of year where witches go apeshit and regular people pretend to be witches and the veils are thinnest. And I hate Halloween, which is sort of a long story. I love costumes. I love candy. I love frivolity, but I hate horror and I hate jump scares. I have a lot of like auditory sensitivities and Halloween
Same.
is always a minefield. So, um, but I went out and I sought a public ritual. I was very happy that I found one. There were very few I did in the book because it was during COVID and these guys took their COVID precautions very seriously. Everyone was vaccinated. I really appreciated how genuine they were and also how cautious they were, and also that at the same time they welcomed strangers. It's very rare to have all those three things together. So I go to this stranger's house and, a bunch of women in black tulle veils sage me and welcome me and sprinkle me with water. And I go outside and there's this huge bonfire. And I think I was expecting some kind of, I don't know, some kind of ecstatic orgy. And instead it's like five people kind of puttering around in jeans. Three guys are clearly just there because their girlfriends dragged them. And, everyone's like nice. But the vibe is just very like chill house party, right? And then this fucking ritual starts, and this woman comes out of the house, and she is this magnet. She's tall. She's in this floor-length dress. She gives this speech about the meaning of the holiday, and that the veil between the worlds are thin. And this time they're a more goddess focused tradition, and they wanted to invite Hela in, who I'm sure I don't have to tell you who that is. She really wanted to arrive. And as this woman is speaking, birds fly by and cars drive through. We're outside, and we're in an urban area, and she just weaves in all the sounds like a braid. I mean, the woman is I am witnessing someone in flow. Who was also speaking to me. And I had never seen that before. And I was like, I want to be in this woman's coven. I mean, it was just I was so magnetized. And then we did a ritual, and it was long. I mean, it was like 3 fucking hours long.
Oh,
and
wow.
It was, I didn't know that. It was like serious business. And we chant, we walk in a circle, we chant Hela's name. It goes for a really long time. And then another woman, after about an hour and a half, comes out of the house who, this is not explained, but in retrospect, I understand that she is aspecting Hela. And
when you say aspecting, you mean
she is embodying her, basically.
Okay.
Well, I mean, how would you define aspecting?
I'm just curious what you meant. Like, were they presenting it as though she were like truly possessed and speaking as the goddess Hela? And for those who may not know, Hela is a Nordic goddess, Loki's daughter, who is the goddess in charge of the underworld realm by the same name. Hell, Hel. Hel, single L, Hel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
she didn't speak. But I would say the impression is that she was supposed to be representing the goddess Hela. And I believe that the mortal woman who was taking on that role had done a lot of very intense preparation for it, and was taking it very seriously, and was trying not to be her, and was trying to really invite Hela into her body. Yeah.
Got you. And you felt that kind of presence from her.
I did.
Amazing.
I really did. And I'm not going to get into it too deep, not even for spoilers, but honestly, there's an audiobook version of this book. And when I had to read this section, it took us 2 hours because I kept having to stop and cry. And the producer even told me, I mean, it was so bad. He had to try all these tricks, like try reading the sentence backwards and then we'll re-put it, because I just couldn't get through it. But basically what happened, a quick summary is, we were asked to connect with our grief as part of the ritual. And my father died in 2008 when I was 19, and we had a not great relationship, but we were starting to repair it. And then he died unexpectedly, just as we were starting to reconnect after, basically my whole life, he was in and out of prison. He was a not enough drug addict. He loved me, but he couldn't be there. And, so there's sadness and there's anger, and I don't even know who you are. And then just as we're starting to reconnect, he just dies. And when he died, I had no idea how to process that grief. I didn't understand how to mourn something you never had. That kind of grief is very different from, I don't know, quote unquote, normal grief. I didn't know what to do. And I just sort of stuffed it all down and moved on with my life, I guess. And then here I am, however many years later, standing at in front of a bonfire at a stranger's house, and she's asking us to summon our grief. And I have this cascade of realizations about how I think my dad is my guardian angel, and I cast him in this perfect star dream, guardian angel role in my life, because I never had a real relationship with him. And I don't want to disappoint him by becoming a witch, because he wouldn't approve. He was a staunch evangelical Christian, and I didn't want to let him down. And then this other voice in my head goes, what the fuck are you talking about? He's dead.
Yeah.
Why are you putting these chains on yourself and saying that the guardian angel is doing it? This is you. And then this other realization that no, but if I take the handcuffs off, then what do I have to remember him by? All I have is his theoretical judgment and his theoretical approval or lack thereof. And this other voice in my head goes, none of this is real. You have made this whole thing up. Your cage door is open. What are you so scared of? You're never going to get approval or judgment. This is a dead guy. None of this is real. And like most kinds of sudden freedom, it was oddly depressing. And so then I'm pacing around this fire, kind of processing all of this and just trying not to cry and feeling free and like I've been deluding myself all these years and what was I thinking and da da da. And then I go and at one point I am escorted and basically thrown at the feet in front of Hela. And I just look up at her and she looks at me in the eyes and I look at her and I just start sobbing. I mean, I have this total full on mental breakdown in the grass. And no one else has done this, by the way, just me, of course. Nobody else. People are very calm with their grief. And I'm like ugly crying straight up and embarrassed. And this woman, this goddess woman, just reaches out and she puts a hand on my cheek and she puts a hand on my bare chest, which felt in any other circumstance just incredibly violating, to be honest, but it just didn't. And she just looked me in the eye and just like, we just breathed together. And I cannot explain to you, but I felt like she was absorbing all my suffering. Shit, sorry, I'm gonna cry.
That's okay. And if I may, I would say if you felt in that ritual, in that space, and in that time that she was absorbing your grief, then in that moment, that's exactly what was happening. Even if she didn't know that's what she was doing. It's a safe space, and it's a sacred time. It's a sacred space. And you allowed yourself to be vulnerable in that space and in that time. And that's a powerful thing. And it's incredibly rare, not just at that ritual, Diana. That's a thing that you just don't see in public rituals. I don't.
No, I mean, and it was, I mean, like, it was, okay, I mean, ugly crying. Like, I snotted all over this woman's hands. She just, like, didn't take her hands off me. It was weird. It was deep. It was deep. And this is COVID time, okay? Like, this is, I'm in her backyard snotting on her hand during COVID. And we're like, I'm like, do I have to be in public for this? Oh my God. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, I've had therapists since then. I've talked to them a lot about my father, but yeah, paid a stranger $20 in, the South Bay and went over to her house on Halloween one night and had a breakthrough that $2,000 worth of degreed professionals couldn't get me to do. It was talk about a shortcut. Yeah, so that was pretty profound. And then of course at the end of the night, I after like really feeling like I'd let my dad go and all of this, I leaned down in the grass after the ritual is done. And this is actually the first time I really felt that I had to discharge energy. I'd done rituals before then, and at the end they always tell you to reconnect with the earth and discharge your energy, and I was like, LOL, what energy? And this time I was like, oh my God, please let me get off the ride. So I'm in the grass. I'm just fully kowtowed in the grass, face down, ass up, just begging for this whole thing to be over, begging to be drained. And I look up and I see in the grass something that it reminds me of a rune. And I hadn't done much rune work up until that point, but it was very, 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 very distinct, and it looked like a 3-pronged rake. And I thought, I'm just imagining things, and I thought, no, that really looks like a 3-pronged rake, and it looks different from everything around it, and it's right in front of my nose. And this is funny, I'll have to look it up later. And then I went home and I looked it up, and sure enough, it was algaes. And I thought, okay, that feels like a sign for something. And it was the first thing I felt like I didn't have to dig into too hard. I just understood what it meant. And I don't know if I believe in ghosts. I really don't. But it did feel like my dad saw all of that. And he was like, I'm still here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still watching you.
Yeah. Algaes. No, you're fine. Algaes is also known as by the name Elhaz for people who may not know. And that's a pretty good way to describe it. It's a protective rune. It is a connecting to the divine kind of rune. It's a protective rune. That
Anyway.
is all a very cool experience, because you did connect with something there, and you definitely connected with your grief, which is what they wanted you to do.
Yeah.
I'd say you had one of the most profound ritual experiences that you could seek out, and you did it with strangers. And oddly enough, I think strangers is where you might have the most profound experiences.
Correct. I don't think I could have done that if my friends were there. I just don't think I would have let go that hard, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'm also a dancer, and it is so much easier to dance when I don't know anyone in the audience. And if I know someone whose opinion I care about is judging me, oh God, kill me.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. You know, I feel kind of similarly about ritual.
Yeah. Did you see, other than seeing something with a rune, did you have anything that maybe occurred over the next week or two that brought you further confirmation or something of that nature that you didn't reveal in the book?
Not that I can immediately remember, but I think what actually happened is I just felt calmer about my relationship with my dead dad.
Mm-hmm.
And like I didn't feel so haunted by it anymore.
Gotcha.
I just felt like something happened, and it was big enough and it was profound enough that I didn't have to have all these doubts and what ifs. And I'd had a lot of realizations and a lot of questions answered, and it was enough. It was like the questions just stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, grief never really ever totally leaves you, but you learn to carry it differently, and it just didn't hurt so much anymore. And I do think after that, my relationship to witchcraft did change, because it was the first time something super, super, super profound happened, and I knew how deep it could affect me.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, I started taking everything a lot more seriously.
Yeah.
It was harder to be cavalier about some stuff, because I was like, no, this shit'll fuck with you. Like, careful, dude. Like, it's all fun and games and playing with crystals until you're snotting all over a stranger's hand in a backyard because you're communing with like your dead dad. Yeah.
Yeah. Although, I was part of a fairly sizable ADF grove, ADF being a modern neo-pagan druid organization. And there's what they call the core order of ritual. It's got to follow these specific beats and these specific orders, and then you can fill in the blanks with your particular, pantheon and favorite spirits and whatnot. And for 7 years or so, we had these group rituals and stuff. And I got to the point where I would joke and not joke at the same time. People, I'd get there. I'd drive an hour to get there. It was in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, where we'd meet up. And people would be like, "Hey, Lonnie, how you doing?" I'm like, I'm really hoping someone gets possessed tonight. That's what I'm hoping.
Oh, I have possession on my bingo card.
And nobody ever did. And I think it's because we knew each other too well.
Have you ever attended a witch camp with the reclaiming collective?
No, I'm not done that. Now, I've seen people get what I think may have been like called possession light. Because I'm not sure you can ever actually fully be possessed by something. You can be possessed by a feeling, an emotion, and it certainly will change your fucking character. But can a spirit or a god take total control over you? I don't know. I remain unconvinced.
I remain unconvinced of that too. Although, I mean, you see in a lot of voodoo rituals, people will, they'll have one of the gods ride them, and you see
Right.
these people who normally can't walk without a cane are suddenly tap dancing, and
I do. You're seeing the power of trance.
yeah,
That people walk on glass, eat glass, stab themselves with things. The most extreme examples, right? The most beautiful examples are, they feel like they've connected to something divine and it transforms their lives.
yeah.
And people can be healed of pain and suffering and transform all of that. But was there a spirit controlling them? Maybe. I'm very in the maybe camp.
Yeah, it still seems I
Yeah.
do think being able to shut off your thinking mind, as it were, to allow for such possession to occur I think that's a skill set probably very few of us have. And I
Mhm.
imagine that's something that takes a lot of dedication and practice and is actually extremely dangerous because
Mhm.
you're deliberately trying to cause ego death. And in a controlled way, but I don't want to do that. That sounds terrifying.
Mhm.
Nope. I don't want to do that at all. Because what if I don't come back? What if I come back wrong?
If I come back wrong, yeah.
Came back wrong. I don't want to do that.
With spirits, we got into spirits and whatnot here, and joking about possession, kind of. And you said you don't believe in ghosts. So, have you experienced anything you would consider kind of a haunting, or had some kind of paranormal phenomena happen around you that makes you kind of go maybe?
Well, definitely the algae's Rune appearing in front of my nose on Samhain after thinking about my dad with Hela for a couple hours. That was one. Um, y- uh, I have a water problem. I have a water problem consistently in my life where water will just kind of explode around me.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most recent examples was at one point we move in the book and water is dripping out of the kitchen ceiling. And then we call the landlord, and the landlord sends a plumber, and the plumber goes up there and opens up a light, and everything is bone dry. And it's only a couple hours later, and he looks at us and he said, if you hadn't shown me a video, I would have thought you guys were screwing with me.
Mm-hmm.
Or just pipes exploding, things backing up. I mean, it's not fun. And a lot of it could just be written off as coincidence, but sometimes I have wondered, like, okay, the reason I think it's just a coincidence is because I haven't yet figured out what the water is always trying to tell me. Or if it's just a reflection of my own emotional state or what. Jury's still out on that one. So I would
Mm-hmm.
call it maybe a little verging on the paranormal, some of those instances. I mean, I have too many to count, but again, some of them could just be coincidences. And because I don't really know what they mean. Also, I guess I just don't like the idea of spirits fucking around with me. Okay, maybe I'm not being totally honest with myself. I think maybe I do believe in spirits and energies, just not ghosts, because whenever I move into a new house or go into a new space, one of the first things I do is sort of say, hi, I don't know who's here. But like, you're cool, I'm cool, you're cool. I'm going to like spray some peppermint oil and we're going to be friends. We're going to be friends. And if you don't want to be my friend, you can go. Okay. But we're going to be friends. Don't fuck with me, please. Let's just be friends. I do that almost despite myself. So I guess if I do that and then I say, I don't believe in ghosts, maybe I'm kidding myself a little bit.
See?
But
And that's why I say you got to let people dig a little deeper.
I guess maybe I believe in ghosts, but if I do, then I believe I am a ghostbuster, because I don't believe they can just mess with me. I believe that we are in a dialogue and that I can make them go away if I don't like them. Honestly, I do.
I gotcha. You say something in the book, kind of goes with that, like, they can't make me do what I don't want to do. I thought it was so important, I highlighted it and highlighted it and highlighted it again. And I'm not even sure if I have a question out of this, but I'm curious about the thought behind it, like where you're at now when you hear it. But you said in the book, your worst middle school bully is also looking at that Instagram post, reminding them that they are a powerful goddess who deserves a big fluffy bath. What a statement to make. And I hope no one brushes over that.
Well, so this kind of goes back to, I guess, I have some weird resentments around modern witchcraft's tone. And when I say modern witchcraft, I'm talking about social media. I'm talking about the surface level stuff. But a lot of it is very, you are worthy, you're a god. It's all of it is amp up and compliments and amp up and compliments. And it sort of starts to feel cheap. Like, in my opinion, if someone doesn't really know you very well and they tell you they love you, it doesn't feel like someone loves you. It feels like they've just cheapened the term love.
Right.
I like, when I dug more into witchcraft, what I really liked is how much of it was about shadow work and digging into the parts of ourselves that are ugly and shameful and embarrassing. But that's not always fun to put into an Instagram meme, and it doesn't sell bath salts, and it doesn't sell, yeah. I'm trying to think more about the context of that passage, because I feel like I have something smarter to say to you about
I didn't highlight anything else around it. Well, maybe I did. Location 2, I have it on Kindle. So that was location 2252. Location 2250, I also highlighted, you don't have to be raised Christian to be subject to the American Puritan mindset.
Oh, that's true.
That's so true.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah.
I had so many highlights in your book.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I think basically why I was resentful of all the self-care commandments is because I felt like there are people out there who are bad and they're doing bad things, and then they're on Instagram being told, like, the most selfish person you know is having their therapist tell them that they need to be more selfish. And that's just so frustrating to think about, right? And the worst person you know is looking at an Instagram meme telling them they need to go take a bath. So there's two things going on here. One is what I was talking about earlier, just this like splaying of self-care no matter what, and how I think that might actually be a little cheap and toxic. And the second is doing this witchcraft year made me examine my relationship to self-care and why I think it's so annoying. Like, why is my reaction to someone telling me to take a bath to be annoyed? That says more about me, and I don't think anything positive. What's going on there? Why is that so bad? Why do I feel like I don't deserve that? And that sort of dovetails into this idea of, you don't have to be raised Puritan to feel the effects of being raised in an American Puritan environment. Like, my family's not Christian, but I didn't realize how many Puritan values I was carrying around totally unconsciously until I did this book. And there were a lot. And I wasn't raised Christian. I don't know how they even got in there. I don't know how the cockroaches got in the house. I don't know. I have no idea. Everything was sealed. We have no clue, you know. So that was something I examined throughout the book, just learning to let that go. And also this idea that we're all on our own journeys and it's okay to take breaks, but yeah, self-care isn't necessarily a bad thing, and I can take breaks sometimes. I don't have to, my value is not measured by my work. My value is not measured by sexual purity. My value is not measured by anything else the Puritans thought was good, because let's also remember the Puritans were not a healthy people.
No.
At all.
No.
Why am I using their metrics for morality to judge my own life? I'm really glad that Witchcraft kind of helped me realize that was happening, because I didn't even think it was. I mean, it wasn't like I ran from evangelical Christianity into Witchcraft. I ran from basically what I thought was truly neutral territory, and then I realized how unneutral my territory was. Yeah.
Yeah. Somewhere in this, I get the idea that you didn't take the label witch for yourself.
No.
And you seem to end the book in that kind of fashion too, but
depends on who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
To be honest. Like, I would say it to you because I think that's fine, but I'm not going to like go to my friend's barbecue and be like, I'm a witch, because those people could literally think that I drink baby blood. You know, yeah.
Oh, one of my best friends in the world, not into any of this stuff. Whenever I see him, like, we'll go out to the bar or something. He'd be like, "What'd you do?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I was at the ritual, blah blah blah." And he goes, "Did you kill a goat tonight?" You know, like
exactly. And you're like, that's funny once. That's like funny one time, and then it's sort of just like, I'd rather not deal with whatever you think a witch is, and then putting that on me. I'd just rather not, because I don't know what you think a witch is. And
so you would consider yourself a witch still? Is that what I'm getting at? Just depends on who's asking. But I'm not asking what you would say to someone else. I'm asking you, how do you identify to you? Like, does that carry meaning to you?
I identify as a neo-pagan pretty openly, even though I've heard that maybe that term is falling out of fashion.
Nobody says neo-pagan anymore. No, I'm kidding.
I don't know. I just like learned that like last month. But no, I no particular sect, but you know, I like following the wheel of the year. I believe the earth is a deity. I believe in interconnection. I like green religion, to quote Oberon's L. Ravenheart. Am I a witch? I'm like, no, I'm not. And then if I like have a problem next month, you better believe I'm going to be in front of my altar lighting a bunch of candles and invoking a bunch of deities and going, please stop.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I mean,
if I am a witch, I'm probably not a very good one. I will say that, but
and I'm not sure.
It's a practice. Yeah.
I'm not sure how you would define a good one anyway. I mean, like we said earlier, you can find witches everywhere in every religion, in every culture, something that we could point at and say that's a witch, even though they may say, no, I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I mean, yeah. There's one more thing I want to bring up in the public part of the show, and that is something I always like to ask people. Is there any local folklore, legend, figure, or something that leans into this realm that you really like, somewhere you've lived or somewhere you've visited that you really enjoyed? Some place that you would recommend people visit?
Can you
just local legends, folklores, the house that all the kids knew was haunted, the cryptids, places where witches gather that nobody knows, just something fun in a local folklore or local mythology or something. Anything of that nature?
Based on where I am right now, not immediately. I mean, I live on, unceded coastal Miwok territory at the moment, and so little was known or recorded about the Miwok and they basically don't exist anymore. They don't. It's extremely sad, and very little was recorded about their beliefs. And um, I mean, I've had spiritual experiences amongst the trees out here, but I wouldn't exactly call it local legend. More just like me maybe deluding myself on a hike while listening to trance music. But um,
No, that's cool. If there's nothing that really stands out, that's fine.
I think there is something very, 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 very witchy and profound about the Eastern Sierra Nevada, broadly. I'll say that. Every time I go out there, I feel like I'm in a cathedral. Doesn't matter where I am or what I'm doing. There is just something in the air in the Eastern Sierras that makes the most atheistic among us get a little starry in the eye. Just there's something about that space, and there might be more lore out there, but unfortunately I don't have anything immediate that springs to mind. Sorry.
Oh, that's fine. All right. We have come, I guess, to a good place to wrap up the regular portion of the show. Is there anything that I didn't bring up? Any kind of any parting thoughts or anything you'd want to share?
Nothing immediately jumps to mind. I mean, I will say if anyone is listening to this and they happen to read the book, I really love talking to people about this stuff. So if you read the book and you want to tell me what you think of it, I would genuinely love that. Yeah, the Witching Year by Diana Helmuth. You can follow me on TikTok, Instagram. I am on Twitter. I will never call it X, but rarely. Yeah, I love hearing what people think about this stuff because I think a lot of this is a deeply ever evolving space. Nothing about it is static. And I think that is something about it that is extremely cool. And it means there's always interesting opinions, and it never gets old. It never gets old for me. Yeah.
Yep, same. Obviously never gets old for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I lean hard into my magical thinking, and I still have a little skeptic in my brain too. And I think that's a healthy place to be, though.
I think it is healthy. I think that's what keeps us from being fully delusional. I've learned to see that little voice as actually, it used to annoy me, and now I'm like, she's protecting me. She's protecting me from totally losing my mind into a constant state of flow. You know, she
keeps you from being the person in the middle of the street screaming at things that may not be there. You know.
Yeah. I've learned to appreciate her. Yeah.
I dig it. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. This has been a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
It's been a joy to chat with you. Thank you.
Okay. Could you tell folks where they could find you and your work?
Yeah. So the book again is The Witching Year, a memoir of Earnest fumbling through modern witchcraft. And I am on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter. And you can find me at Diana Helmuth, or Definitely Not Lost is my handle on most of those places. Yeah. And I again would love to hear from anyone who checks out the book and see if any parts of it resonated with their journey, if they disagreed with anything I did, or they just want to chat about it. I would love that.
Okay. Awesome. Everyone out there listening, thank you as always for being a fan. I greatly appreciate it. And if you're new here, thank you for coming and join us too. If you enjoy the episode, please like it, share it, give it, rate it, review it on all your favorite platforms. If you want to hear the rest of this, you're going to have to go to Patreon and join the membership to get it. So you can do that by either going to patreon.com/weirdwebradio or go to weirdwebradio.com and click join the membership. All right, folks, stay weird out there. And it is bonus audio time. Diana Helmuth, are you ready?
I'm ready. Born ready.
You said you were going to say hell yeah. No.
Hell yeah, I'm ready. Hell yeah. Couldn't remember.
First question is always the same for first-time visitors. What famous person's resting place do you most want to visit, and why?
Oh man, this is a real lightning round. Ooh.
Yeah. It can have be
Most
stories too.
famous resting place. I cannot explain to you why, but the first thing that occurred to me was I can't remember if I'm saying her name correctly. If someone knows I'm saying this incorrectly, I'm so sorry.
Do you want to hear how they just answered that question? What famous person's resting place would you most like to visit? That and many others, including what they think about the afterlife, what they may or may not do in cemeteries, what are their traditions and magical practices that have to do with the dead, folklore that surrounds their homes, and so much more, available for only $5. $5 a month. Even if I make more than one episode in a month, it's still just $5 a month at patreon.com/weirdwebradio, or go to weirdwebradio.com and click join the membership. You can find me on Instagram at weirdwebradio. You can find me on Facebook as Weird Web Radio, or come join the new, fun, and exciting Weird Web Radio Facebook group. Thank you again for being here. Stay weird out there, my friends.